Good morning and welcome to Northern Lights Spiritual Center. My name is Reverend Vaughn Amaré and I am here with Reverend Mykal Amaré, who will be doing today's talk. Northern Lights Spiritual Center is a community of people dedicated to using spiritual and practical principles to create lives we want to live. Northern Lights Spiritual Center offers practical and spiritual tools to make positive changes in our lives. Our promise: to reveal, inspire, uplift, celebrate, and magnify your greatness. Please join me for our opening song, "In This Very Room," by Ron and Carol Harris. In this very room, there's quite enough love for all the world. And in this very room, there's quite enough joy for all the world. And there's quite enough peace and quite enough power to walk through our every fear. For Spirit, sweet Spirit, is in this very room. In this very room. And for this morning's meditation, I'm going to ask us to just get settled into our seats if we're sitting. If we're standing, to just kind of have a gentle posture. Slowly allow ourselves to become aware of our breath. We can pay attention to our breath by noting the feel through our nostrils, breathing in through our nostrils and breathing out through our mouth. And just pay attention to whatever rate of breath we have. Is it slow and steady? Was it ragged earlier and becoming a little more steady? How much do we breathe in? Do we allow our diaphragms to fill up? Does our chest rise and fall? And with that attention on the breath, allow ourselves to let all the sounds around us simply drift away. allow ourselves to be present to the absence of sound. To the space between sounds, the space between words. And in this time of silence, we might let our thoughts and feelings simply fall away like the sounds. So as any thought or feeling rises up, just give it a little nod and then let it go on by. Just notice what kind of space becomes available when we open ourselves this way. Imagine this kind of silence as an offering from creation. What happens when we allow ourselves to receive it? This gap between thoughts and feelings and words and actions is continually available to us. If you've ever taken an airline flight and had luggage taken in the baggage section of the plane, it's there, but it's not readily available. We have the power to put our baggage out of sight and mind. We have the power to say, I'm going to claim it, or perhaps I'll leave it behind. Just notice if there's anything that we can leave behind. Any thoughts or feelings that may no longer serve us. And once again, put our attention on our breath. The sound of the breath in and out. Put our attention to the support of the chair if we're sitting, the floor if we're standing. And as we've shifted our attention back to our worlds, wiggle fingers and toes and allow ourselves to come back to the room. And so it is. So we have our declaration up on the screen for people that are here, and hopefully on your screens for people who are participating online. And I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to have you say it with me 2 more times, so that we do it a total of 3 times. We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. And one more time and really feel it. We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. And so it is. So today's reading is actually from the Torah, or the Old Testament. For folks like me that were raised Catholic, it wasn't referred to by its actual identity. It was carried off as the Old Testament. So this comes from Kings, 1 Kings. The Holy of Holies speaks to Elijah at Horeb. Then the Holy of Holies said, "Go out and stand before the mountain, before the Holy of Holies. Behold, the Holy of Holies is about to pass by." And a great wind tore into the mountains and shattered the rocks before the Holy of Holies. But the Holy of Holies was not in the wind. And after the wind, there was an earthquake. But the Holy of Holies was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, there was a fire. But the Holy of Holies was not in the fire. And after the fire came a still small voice. When Elijah heard that, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Suddenly a voice came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And so it is.
What are you doing?
So we have a new chant for this month. Pretty easy. There's more to me than meets the eye. Sands on shores, endless stars in the sky. Infinity lives inside. Divinity abiding in me. We'll do that twice, and then we'll change out the pronoun. There's more to me than meets the eye. Sands on shores, endless stars in the sky. Infinity lives inside, divinity abiding in me. And one more time. There's more to me than meets the eye. Sands on shores, endless stars in the sky. Infinity lives inside, divinity abiding in me. Now it's more to you. There's more to you than meets the eye. Sands on shores, endless stars in the sky. Infinity lives inside, divinity abiding in you. There's more to you than meets the eye. Sands on shores, endless stars in the sky. Infinity lives inside, divinity abiding in you. Now there's more to us. There's more to us than meets the eye. Sands on shores, endless stars in the sky. Infinity lives inside, divinity abiding in us. There's more to us than meets the eye. Sands on shores, endless stars in the sky. Infinity lives inside, divinity abiding in us. Now back to me and really feel it this time. There's more to me than meets the eye. Sands on shores, endless stars in the sky. Infinity lives inside, divinity abiding in me. There's more to me than meets the eye. Sands on shores, endless stars in the sky. Infinity lives inside, divinity abiding in me. Divinity abiding in me. Divinity abiding in me.
Cast your intention into the void. The universe is waiting. Ever present at your command, eternally creating. There inside the silence, deep inside the silence, listen to the silence. Deep within your sacred place where unity and peace dwell. Unity and peace dwell. You can hear that still small voice say things only to you it will tell. Only in the silence. Deep inside the silence. Listen to the silence. Never-ending joy, never-ending peace, never-ending light, never-ending ease. All that is and all that was is all that there ever will be. Oh, field of boundless possibilities, endlessly unfolding. Here inside the silence, only in the silence, deep inside the silence, there inside the silence, listen to the silence.
Oh, good morning. Here we are again, second week of January 2023. And today, I don't know, you might guess on the talk title is that still small voice. And you may have felt and heard that still small voice during the meditation which Reverend Vaughn led us through. And in this song, I love the line, deep within the silence, and then the part it goes quiet for a minute. And it's just that little bit of quiet that sometimes that small voice within speaks to us. Many times it speaks to us in other ways, like a call to do something. And sometimes we ignore it because we don't like that call. I remember when I got the call to become a practitioner. I went home and I don't know if it was this time I told Vaughn about it. I said, something's come up, or it was for minister where something's come up and I didn't want to speak it because I know once you speak it, it is done. But sometimes we fight this call. We fight it with tooth and nail. But eventually, I would say probably 90% of the time, you still go through with it because it's that repeated, still small voice, just maybe nagging, maybe not, but speaking to you. And intuition is also the form of that still small voice, because you're listening to yourself. And you are the divine expressing, so you're listening to the divine. I was always under the impression that women, that the female population, were the only ones that had intuition. You know, even though I had experienced it, I thought, well, no, that's not right. However, practitioner training, I found out that that wasn't true. Everyone has this intuition. Everyone has this still small voice. And intuition is that place that is always available. It's always there. In every breath and in every heartbeat, it's our birthright, our connection to the original blessing. For we are blessed, and we are a blessing. We're both. As we practice connecting to the place of knowing, we become more familiar with the energetic quality. The more we practice this stopping, being still, and listening, the more familiar and more easy it becomes. But turning up the volume on that still small voice does offer us a richer toolkit in making decisions. Because I believe the more that we listen to the still small voice, the more we learn to trust it. Because a lot of times we don't trust our own decision making. We don't trust ourselves. And we don't trust a lot of people on the outside. But the more we practice listening to that still small voice and realizing that, you know, it is our good and it is for our good, the more we will rely on it. And what is this thing called the still small voice? What is it? Where does it reside within you? I know it's interesting because when I lived alone, a lot of times I always had to have something playing. TV, music, something going on, some noise. And all of a sudden one day, I realized, wait a minute. I was working around the house and I'm going, wait a minute, there's nothing going on. It's just me and the silence. And I realized that sometimes I don't need this other noise. For one thing, I have enough, noise going on in my head. A lot of times, the committee, they have to meet now and then, especially when you don't want them. They're up there, but experiencing just the quiet around. It's such a spiritual practice. It's connecting with the divine because there's nothing else, and there is nothing else but the divine in us. And being part of that divine, all there is the divine. As I said earlier, that still small voice is also called intuition. We have this, sometimes we have this gut feeling. I know if anyone's ever watched Bones on TV, the series, is the FBI agent Booth, he always goes with his gut feeling, this, and she's all in her head. She's the head person, and she can't understand this gut feeling. But eventually, down the road, in the series, she develops, this gut feeling, and it is true. It's this feeling we get when we know something is really right, and we know something is really wrong. I know I've experienced the right things, but the wrong things affect me more when I know that something just is not right. I know it is in my gut. That's where I always get that feeling in it, like knots and actually pain sometimes. there is that still small voice inside of us that keeps calling us and bringing us back to the truth. Back to the truth of who we are, back to the truth in the life of God. That still small voice kind of maybe sets our direction, sets our course, and then resets it and resets it so that we're back on track to where we are supposed to be. When we create, we stop and listen to that still small voice inside of us. When we want to do something, when we want to, say, build something, bake something, create something, maybe clothes or whatever it may be that we want to, this process that we want to enter into, I believe the best course of action is to stop and be still and listen for that voice. And a lot of times, particularly in meditation, a lot of times when you're meditating on something specific or contemplating, you could, that something comes up and you go, huh? What's that? I don't understand that or whatever. And you can speak it out and say, I need more information. Because, if we're not clear, we can't proceed with what it is we are to do. So it's okay to ask. And I found out for me, it is a good thing to ask. Because then it's reaffirmed. And then it's right there. I mean, it's the thing that is to be. Usually we start this process because of a task that we have, or sometimes thoughts just seem to be there while we're daydreaming. Sometimes we're just sitting around, and all of a sudden, thoughts pop into our head. And that too is that still small voice. It's coming into us, speaking to us in a way that gets our attention. It's like, whoa, what's that? And daydreaming, I don't know if I've daydreamed a lot lately. I think that's a good reason not driving a car or operating heavy equipment. That might not be a good thing to daydream in. But if you have time to be alone and still, that stillness is, I think, what does it. Because so many times in meditation we become still, and the second that we become still and our mind gets kind of at ease, poof, all these things pop in. And that's okay. What I was told was, let them be. Allow them just to pass through. Recognize them, but don't obsess about them. The idea may not be what we actually realized, but that's really what we do. These thoughts are the ones that appear because the time is right. Because maybe 10 years ago, the time wasn't right. Or you were in a situation where this may not be possible. But now, when this comes to you, you can take a second look at it and say, oh, this is a time. This is a time and perfect time to do this or to be this. These thoughts, when they appear, are the universal mind speaking to us, expressing the truth that will make life better for all. Because normally, this still small voice isn't going to tell you to, well, I can't say it, but for a lot of people, it's not going to tell you to do something, illegal or immoral, but it's something for your good. And if it's for your good, in the long run, it's going to be good for those around you. because that good can do nothing but expand from out of you. The thing sometimes called a still small voice is the portion of God that is expressing as us. So that still small voice that is within us is the divine expressing as us. Because the divine does that, expresses in, through, around, and as us. That's why we are here, because we are that expression of the divine. Only doing, what we were sent here to do, what we can do. Nobody else can be you. That's the amazing thing about us being individuals. Nobody else in this life, in this world, can be you. And sometimes that's hard to express or accept, especially when we get down on ourselves, when we think we're not enough, we think all these negative thoughts about ourselves. Yet nobody can do the things that we do better than we can. We are here to be the best that we can be. So it is only when we know, acknowledge, and then believe in the power of good as us that we will experience it. So we have to accept that. We have to know it and accept it and really believe in our core that the power of good is expressing as us. And one of our beliefs and what we believe is we believe in the direct revelation of truth through the intuitive and spiritual nature of the individual, and that any person, that's any person, may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. That anyone, doesn't matter what shape, form, whatever color you are, anyone may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. With that still small voice that speaks to us, that guides us. And the spirit within is the source of intuition. It is that still small voice of God that enlightens us during prayer and meditation. And occasionally, in the midst of our daily activities. Like maybe we're standing in line in a store and just standing and waiting and just kind of daydreaming. And, it's in the stillness. As Eddie Watkins in the song, to be in the silence, in that stillness. This pure, untaught knowledge has been also called the sixth sense, our gut feeling, or our inner knowing. So it has many names, just like a lot of things have many names. So it's that gut feeling, that sixth sense, which a lot of people poo-poo, or just maybe it's that inner knowing. Just as tuition is factory, it's like factory equipment when we enter this world, and it's in every human, but it develops at different rates among us. Sometimes it takes longer for us to, like I said, to trust our intuition, to trust that still small voice, just plain trust in itself. There was the school principal who would ask children that were in their office for misbehaving, was what you did right or wrong? When the respondent said it was wrong, they asked, how do you know if something is right or wrong? I just can feel it. And isn't that true? And he asked, where do you feel it? In my tummy. And we do know what's right and wrong. We each have that I don't want to say I would like to call it a moral compass, but we each have that knowledge within us to know if something we are doing is right or wrong. When we're born with our gut feeling, that makes us uncomfortable when something is out of kilter in our lives, or gives us that sense of a thing sounds true, feels right, rings a bell, or resonates with us at a deep level. So it's the idea that we know the difference between right and wrong, and we feel it, I want to say, in our gut. So if intuition is indeed built in, how do we lose our ability to use it? To tap into the awareness and let it inform us. Just like little babies when they're born. They come into the world so innocent, so trusting, and yet as they grow and move and get older, they change. And why is that? A lot of this, the influence around them. Some believe that it starts when children are taught that if you cannot see it, feel it, hear it, taste it, or smell it, it isn't real. And that's a crock. Because you may not be able to sense it, and just because you don't sense it, doesn't mean somebody else can't. And you're telling these children that something doesn't exist, that their feelings they don't count. I know when I was little, boys don't cry, or I'll give you something to cry about. Keep crying, I'll give you something to cry about. Children are to be heard and not seen. That's the one that I realized in several years ago now. That is a crock. Well, I knew when I was a kid it was a crock, but then I was a kid, so I didn't know any better. So but telling these young minds that they don't, that what they're feeling or what they're thinking or isn't true, that it isn't there. And of course, most children are instructed to leave their imaginary world behind and join the real world. Sometimes you just don't want to be in the real world. Sometimes it's not a good place to be. I don't remember having, an invisible friend. Maybe I did. But sometimes that's a huge coping mechanism for children. And what is wrong with it? We instruct that's the thing that gets me. We instruct these young minds that, the only truth is what comes out of our mouths. Other things in the world aren't real, aren't true. And as adults, sometimes we are not good people. If we only have 5 senses, then the 6th sense must be imaginary. And of course, most children are instructed, to leave that behind. So intuition may often get left behind with the elves, the gnomes, and the fairies. And our intuition, once so strong, atrophies from its disuse. So we need to use our intuition, allow our intuition to flourish. In the Bible, it says, "It is done unto us as we believe." And if we believe it will work, it does work. And our faith in it grows stronger. However, as Ernest Holmes writes, If we believe that it will not work, it really works by appearing not to work. So if we have this huge belief that this will not work, this will not work, actually, like it says, actually it does work because it won't work, which is kind of crazy, but if you think about it, it is so true. I've known a couple people that have had hip replacements, and they knew they weren't going to work. Guess what? They haven't been able to use that hip properly ever since. And we just had a friend that had a knee replacement, and good as new. Oh, somebody else that had hip replacement in the room, and you would never know. It is all what you believe, and part of that belief is trusting that still small voice within. Until I believed in my intuition, it was not available to me. Because if you don't believe in something, it's not there. Not in the sense that it wasn't there, but it appeared not to be there. It worked by not working. So it's amazing how things work by not working. It is our belief in something. Now that we're on a spiritual path and we find that we long for that intuition that we have had allowed to wither, how do we retrain and regain our intuition? We often turn to writings for spiritual advice and understanding. And Ernest Holmes writes that the only knowledge we have of the kingdom of heaven must come through the consciousness of humans. Therefore, humans' thought should swing between prayer and meditation, contemplation and action. Between prayer and meditation and contemplation and action. So a lot of times we can pray and we can do things, but there has to be some sort of action on our part. Like you're sitting on your couch and you're hungry. And you say, I could really eat a sandwich now. Is that sandwich going to come to you? Maybe if someone's in the kitchen going to make it, but is that sandwich going to get up and make itself? No, it's not. So there's a lot of things that we want to do, we desire, and we put into prayer and meditation, but there's certain steps we need to take. It's not like magic. It's not going to appear, unless of course it does. Yes, as we contemplate the concept that there is only one mind that is omniscient and fully present and available to all of us. And I really love in so many of in Ernest Holmes' writings and others that it states in all of us. And that's one thing. It's really hard to believe that I'm not going there. I'm going to skip that one. We are drawn to the conclusion that if any person can receive divine revelation, all people can. Again, that's one of our statements of what we believe. That any person may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. And I think that needs to be repeated and repeated, because knowing, believing, understanding, accepting that any person can do this. Our humanness tells us to pray harder, to figure out what we need to do to rediscover our intuition. But maybe effort is not what is needed. Maybe it's not that isn't needed at all. Maybe all the effort and doing are actually getting in our way. Because sometimes, for one thing, I get in my own way most of the time. And I know I'm not the only one. There's that saying to get our bloated nothingness out of the way. Sometimes we think we know what is better except when the universe, the divine, actually knows what is better for us. That's why when we do treatment, we're advised to pray for this or something better. Because, you may pray for, you need $10 and, maybe $100 shows up and that's not what you prayed for. But it's something better. So, Ernest Holmes writes, I love this, about animal instincts. Because animals are wise. Animals are probably the best judges of character that there is. He said, it is really omniscience in animals. The same quality, more highly developed, more a conscious appearance in man, and is what we call intuition. Intuition is God in man, revealing him the realities of being. And just as instinct guides animals, so would intuition guide man, if he would allow it to do so. See, animals, they're very intuitive of their surroundings. And they allow intuition to guide them. If something feels wrong, they don't usually, I can't say always, they don't usually go there. And sometimes we don't listen to that. We don't listen to that inner voice and we say, yeah, screw it. That's, I'm going to do it anyway. And yes, I've had situations where I'm going to do it anyway, and anyway turned out bad. So we cannot get it to happen. We can't force it. We just let it happen. Because if we're trying to force, that inner voice to say something like, make a decision that we really think we want, or really think we need, and the inner voice is going, I don't think so. That's not a good idea, or some, something on that sort. I don't know how your inner voice speaks to you. I remember on a meditation when I was in Egypt, I think it was at the temple at Karnak, and we were told we were having a morning meditation, and it said, allow a word to come to you. So I'm sitting there, we're all still, silent, and all this and that, and I wanted a specific word to come. That word didn't come, and it didn't come. But a different word came, and actually it was a better word, because it was where I was at the moment that I needed that word to be in my life. Where this other word is, you can't force it. You could say it, but then are you really being honest and in integrity with yourself? No. When we meditate to commune with the presence within us and listen for that still small voice, that's when the truth is revealed. Spirit responds by corresponding. As we turn to the divine turns to us. So if we're speaking, whether it's out loud or within, the divine's going to answer back. It may not be that second, may not be that day, but eventually the answer will come. And sometimes when you least expect it. I like to think of it as something that happened this morning. We were discussing something in the car on the way back from IKEA yesterday about cover songs. And it came on the radio, And I said, oh, well, Juice Newton did Angel of the Morning, and I just loved her. No, it was, first of all, it was Mary Rush. But then I couldn't think of the other person's name that redid it. This morning we're standing here, and a different song popped in, and I said, Juice Newton. And it's like, where in the hell did that come from? You know, it's interesting that the mind and the divine things, how things work, and it's just so awesome to know that there is a power greater than myself. For me, anyway. To know that I don't have to think of everything. Everything will be supplied, whether it's in thought, whether it's in material things, whether it's in its relationships. The divine provides. We just have to be ready, willing, and able to accept it. And I'd like to throw and appreciate it too, to be grateful for it when it does appear. When we ask the divine to guide our steps, then we need to listen for and to follow that guidance. Not say, oh, poo-poo, I'm going to do it my way anyway. We do, and that's fine. But it may turn out a lot different than it would have if we had allowed the divine to listen to what our still small voice said. This may mean that we have to grow our trust. Like I said earlier, grow our trust and step into the invisible, kind of like Indiana Jones did when he stepped off onto that walkway when there wasn't any. It wasn't visible, but he had the faith and the trust that it was going to be there, and that's what we have to do. We have to have that faith and that trust, that faith of God, that trust of God, that things will go right, that good will prevail. But the greater our trust and faith, the greater will be our demonstration. There was this quote, and I don't know who said it, but there is an intuition within you which already knows that you are one with good, that your destiny is certain, and that you must listen to this intuition, for it is the voice of God within you. It is the voice of the divine within you that is acting, speaking through us, as us. The knower must know, the knower and the known must meet within. There was no more of God's wisdom in Meister Eckhart or the other mystics than there is in you and I. The difference is not that we are less spiritual or that God gives us a smaller portion, but that these great mystics trusted their intuition and acted upon it. That they trusted it and then acted. It is that very fact that they staked their lives on what their intuition guided them to do that grew their intuitive faculties so powerfully. So the more we practice, the more we trust, the more we allow that voice to guide us and to lead us and to support us, the more we grow. So as we grow our trust and faith, the knower within, our intuition, becomes more clear and powerful. We need to learn to trust that our gut instinct. If it feels right, it probably is. Like that old saying too, if that deal seems too good to be true, probably is. The practitioner does not depend. Ernest Holmes wrote this about the practitioner. The practitioner, which can be anybody, does not depend upon hunches or spirits or phenomena. They depend only on what they feel within themselves, because they are keeping silent tryst with the Almighty and with the law of good, which is God. Then can speak directly to them. Our work is simple. It is direct. Let us keep it that way. Sometimes in life, I have to say for myself, that I seem to love to complicate things, you know. Something is really cut and dry, very easy, simple, this, and I'll screw it up because it's not supposed to be this easy. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be difficult. And yet, the steps there are perfectly. No, I'm not speaking of IKEA instructions. That's a whole different world. But sometimes things are so simple, we don't trust the simplicity of it and the ease that it can be. So we need to learn to trust that, trust our instincts. We need to establish ourselves in consciousness of oneness with God. This gives us access to all the creative power, all of the wisdom, all the love, and all the intelligence that there is. When we establish ourselves in that consciousness of the divine, of that oneness that we have access to all this, to the power, to the wisdom, to the love and the intelligence that there is. We do this by taking time daily to commune with the Spirit within through prayer, through meditation, through whatever each of us finds works for us. Because some people, meditation just doesn't work. Or a sitting meditation, being still and quiet, doesn't work. I know I really love a walking meditation, because I'm in motion, and I don't know how to explain it, but there's something about it that, you know, maybe you're out in nature and you see what has been created with the animals and with the foliage. It's just something, whatever you find that works for you. The degree that we are faithful in our daily spiritual practices, we will always be able to trust our intuition to divinely guide us and guard us. That daily meditation, and it doesn't have to be, you know, some people think about the daily spiritual practice, oh, it's going to take, you know, an hour, or 2 hours, 3 hours. It doesn't. It does not have to take that long. Like, again, whatever works for you and your situation. We will hold firm to a faith that still small voice within will always direct us, always direct our work, always direct our lives. With a deep faith and trust, we surrender and let the Spirit within flow through us unimpeded, allowing it to flow freely, easily, gracefully through us. Don't make more work out of it. Like the quote from Jesus, he said, I can of my own self do nothing. It's the Father that dwelleth within me who doeth the works. So it's that inner voice that guides us and assists us through each step in our life, through each day of our life. So this week, I would like you to pay attention. It's simple. Just pay attention. And listen when that still small voice pops up, when your intuition kicks in. And I mean, sometimes we all take it for granted. But if we start paying attention, then we'll see and feel it and know, oh, and you can trust it. And that can be in your spiritual practice of meditation, or standing in line at the store, or sitting in your car at a stoplight, or someplace where you're still for the moment. That voice, it may not come as a speaking voice. However it appears, allow that to be with you this week. And allow yourself to trust it. Trust is a huge thing. And trust yourself. And so it is. So I had to make a affirmation up here because